Hey, this is Megan here from I Run Far, and I'm with I'm with myself, and I'm also with Catherine Hayheddle. She's going to be conducting this interview today. Catherine was actually a competitor at the 2013 Marathon des Sables. She was forced to pull herself out of the race on the first day after she injured her Achilles or lower leg. So I'm really sorry that happened, but as a result of your injury, you were able to watch the race, this year's race unfold and watch the finish line close today. So you're kind of an appropriate person to do this early awkward interview. So I'm going to turn things over to you. Thanks, Catherine.
Okay, so I'm here with Meghan Hicks, who's the 2013 Marathon des Sables winner and the first US winner this century, and only the second ever US winner of this amazing race. Congratulations, Meghan, you did so well this week.
Thank you.
First things first, in terms of your preparation for this race, you've been here before. What did you do differently?
Yeah, 4 times. This is the 4th time I've done this race. I think I'm officially obsessed with it. I think my family would agree with that too. They keep wondering why their daughter, or cousin, niece, keeps going to Morocco every year. Last year at this race, I feel like I had an epiphany where it was a fairly comfortable experience. Like, I knew what I was getting into, I knew how to do the race, but for some reason all these light bulbs went on during the race and after the race, where all of a sudden I understood the race, I understood how to race it, and I understood what I could do to be the best version of myself at this race. So I came home from last year's race really inspired and feeling like I kind of had the tools to turn myself into a better MDS racer. Thanks.
In terms of standing where I was, there were 2 stages that were absolutely amazing to watch, and one was the 3rd stage when you came in like an absolute train. Can you tell us what happened that day?
So stage 3, stage 3, I think I began that day in first or second position by just a couple of minutes. Laurence was, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes ahead in the overall standings, and the eventual second place gal, Joanna Meek, who was in 3rd place at the time, she was just a couple minutes behind me. She ran in front of me for most of the race, as did Laurence, and I ended up catching up to her, being able to see her in the distance for most of the second half of the race. Just kind of gradually, by our natural paces, I caught her at the last checkpoint, which was 6 or 6.5K from the finish, just a short little leg to the finish. And I caught up to her, and it kind of turned into a race. I didn't think it would. I kind of thought we would run it in, slowly and easily, because we had to run 50 miles the next day. When I caught her, she took off. She got fire in her pants all of a sudden. And very near to the end of the race, it was essentially a cross-country race, so you kind of pick your lines, and she picked a line that took her a little bit longer, and so just by natural terrain differences, we ended up next to each other again with about a half mile to go. And I thought, then at that point, again we'd jog it in together. We're a half mile from the finish, and so I said, "You want to jog it in?" And she was like, "Oh no." The effect of what she said was "Oh no, let's race." And then I was like, "Okay, let's race." So yeah, it was probably a blazing 8-minute mile pace. After
You don't often see that in the desert.
Yeah, I was probably as fast as the race for about a half mile. Yeah, that was the result of the steam train, was that Joanna indicated she wanted to race, so we raced.
Excellent. The other day I think was the long stage, because it's the stage that everyone talks about. And I was usually quite good at guessing when you'd be back, but I missed you that day because you were a good half an hour earlier than I expected. But you started that day in 2nd place overall, and you finished in 1st. So what happened over the course of that day?
Yeah, that was it was a long day out in the desert. It was a really hot day. I think that was probably the temperature increased that day by several degrees Celsius than previous days. We started out, and Laurence started out real fast. She was only a couple minutes ahead at the first checkpoint, which was 12K. I could still see her just a few minutes out by my watch. And then she disappeared. We went over a series of sand dunes, and she just literally disappeared like magic, flying along. And it was really hot at that point, and there was no way to chase her. There was no way to keep pace. There was no way that I could run what she was running and still have, 40 more miles of good running.
Yeah.
I had to like kind of gear down and just do it at what was sustainable for me, and that ended up being about the same sustainable pace for Joanna too. She and I ran pretty much the entire first half of the race within 50 meters of each other. Her leading, me leading, gapping each other, running next to each other, chatting with each other. And then, coming into just shortly before checkpoint 3, which was like close to halfway, Joanna was a few minutes in front of me, and I saw her all of a sudden walk or run past somebody wearing yellow, and Laurence was wearing yellow all week, and all of a sudden I realized it was Laurence, and she was walking, and I just about died. I just about died seeing the top woman walking halfway into essentially a 50-mile run, 47 miles.
Yeah.
So then I came upon her a couple minutes later, and she was kind of in a bad state. She was out of water, she was overheating, she was nauseous, and she was a little bit confused, like she couldn't exactly communicate what was going on. She was ill. I felt terrible seeing her. She had somebody walking with her to deliver her safely to the next checkpoint where she could get some medical help. It was actually like emotionally grueling to overtake her and just to know, what she could be going through.
Yeah.
But she was absolutely amazing. She put her hand on my shoulder and she said, Joanna's just 1 minute in front of you, go race.
Fantastic.
And so, yeah, it was just wrenching, heart-wrenching to pass her. She was in duress, but then to have her tell me to go race was pretty amazing. Joe and I ran pretty much together for about half the distance between that checkpoint and the next water checkpoint, and then I gapped her in some dunes. And I never looked back after that. I don't know how fast I gapped her. I don't know how much time we spent within sight of each other, but I never saw her again. I went with the intention of closing out that stage fast, and I think running conservatively during the heat of the day, like below like your threshold of sustaining yourself, like really set me up for being able to like nail the last 20 kilometers of the race. And I was able to progressively pick up the pace, to the point that I was able to run whatever pace I wanted to, like the last 5K to the finish. So in terms of a race plan, for me it couldn't have gone any better, even though it involved seeing Laurence become ill and eventually have to drop from the race. For me personally, the day couldn't have gone any better.
Fantastic. You did look great when you came in, which is amazing after 47 miles.
I didn't puke.
No, you didn't.
I always puke associated with the 50-mile day, and I didn't puke this year.
No, you didn't. I'm glad, as I was sharing a tent. Okay, in terms of ignoring finish lines, what was your high point of the whole race?
High point of the race was sunset on the long day. They start the 50 top men and the top 5 women around noon, and so you inevitably run into the night if you're not loaded on sail. So I was about, 15K from the finish when sunset came, and I got to see sort of the sun fall out of the sky through a hazy, sort of sandy, hazy atmosphere and fall behind layers of like silhouetted mountains. And it was just gorgeous, and it happened simultaneous to the point in the race where I thought, this is the time to like really turn it on and push. Laurence was somewhere behind me, Joanna was somewhere behind me. I knew that this was my moment to make as big of a gap on the women's field that I could. This was my race to either make or not make, and being inspired by the beauty and having that all kind of interwoven together was pretty special.
Well, you did a fantastic race all week. You were great to live with as a tent mate, and it was fantastic watching you finish every day.
Thank you so much, Catherine. I appreciate it.
Pleasure.